So the next feature is the terminal. So what I can do is copying this and formatting it here. Now with the terminal, it's always part of advanced. So I should actually update this to advanced. Now the terminal is always part of the advanced section, and with the advanced section, you see we have Lightspeed Web Cache Manager, the terminal, cron jobs for scheduling, the track DNS feature, error pages, and etc. But we are interested in the terminal, for example, so you click on the terminal feature, and this always redirects to this web page. Of course, by default, if it is your first time accessing the terminal, there is always a warning, because if you, for example, don't know how to work with the terminal, you might end up creating issues, or maybe you might end up spoiling some things, and so the warning is very key, and you must take caution if you're to use this interface. So misuse of the command line terminals can corrupt or even destroy your data. So if you really understand, you can always go ahead and proceed. So I believe that I understand and I want to proceed. So I click on this. So this always goes ahead and opens up the terminal. So you have to be a little patient while it is opening up the terminal.
So the terminal always provides a command line access to your account on the server. Now, when you look at the interface of the terminal, you notice that it is not always one that looks like the one of the Windows operating system. For example, when you look at this current path of mine, you realize that this command prompt is having an interface built for Windows operating system. So you therefore have to note that the terminal for the server or for the cPanel, most of the times, actually, the terminals are always having a Unix-like structure. So we do not work with the Windows operating system on most of the servers. So apparently it's working with the Linux operating system. So when you look at this terminal, we do not have the ability of working with the Windows operating system commands. So it therefore requires you to at least be knowledgeable with some of the Linux commands or most of the Unix-like environment commands. Like, for example, if I try to create a few of these. So for example, change directory command. We always use this command to navigate between different directories or different paths. Then on the other hand, we also have pwd. So pwd is a command that we tend to use in terms of, for example, the Linux environments, in that we always want to print the current working directory path. So this is print current directory. So directory is the same as dir. And then on the other hand, we also have ls. Now ls is a command that we tend to use for listing the directory files and maybe subfolders in the directory. And it is always the current working directory. So most of the times we tend to accompany this command with some of the options, like for example, when we pass on a -a, this is always going to ensure that it goes ahead and lists all the hidden files or folders within the current working directory. Then we also have clear. So I think this is self-explanatory. It always clears up the current output in the terminal. And so, for example, if we try to test this, so right now, if, for example, I first of all print my current working directory, you see that my current working directory is the root directory path for the home, and then pointing to my parent directory. And on the other hand, if, for example, I try this up with the Windows operating system, when I run a pwd, you see that it's not always possible for you to work with such commands. They can only work unless if, for example, you try out git bash, because git bash has a Unix-like structure. So you always have the ability of running such commands within terminals that support those operating systems, for example. So if I try to run a pwd here, you see that my current path here is the local disk C, then users, then golden. So unlike the Windows operating system, Unix-like environments already support such always support such commands. So if, for example, I wanted to list the files and folders in my current working directory or this current path, I'll go ahead and type ls. So it goes ahead and lists these. And if I really wanted to, for example, move into or navigate into the backend folder, I work with the change directory command. Then I pass on the name of the folder. Then I go ahead and press enter. Then I go ahead and type ls. So you see that within this folder, this is all that we have. And if I really wanted to navigate back, I go ahead and type change directory. Then I go ahead and pass in this. Then I type pwd. Then you see that it goes ahead and prints that now I've switched back to the root directory. And then on the other hand, if I really wanted to also show the hidden files, you have the ability of typing ls then -a. Then you see that it's going to go ahead and list all these other hidden files and folders. So to clear up the terminal, you always have the ability of typing clear. You also always have the ability of checking out the versions of softwares that are installed on the server. For example, this server we are going to work with Python for the back end. So if I really want to test out my current version, so in terms of the Windows operating system, we always have the ability of typing Python, then -- version, then you press enter. So you see that locally, I do have Python 3.12.7. Then on the server, since this is a Unix-like, actually this is more like Linux, the Linux environment, instead of typing again Python, we access this with Python 3, then -- version. So you see that apparently this is the server is having Python 3.6.8. So as of now, I think this is enough in terms of how the terminal works. You just have to go ahead and practice furthermore on what are the exact commands that, actually what are the basic commands that you do need in order for you to access or work with the terminal. But for a beginner, these are some of the basic ones you can have a look at. And that now brings us to the next tool. And the next tool is always under the software section. Now, when you look at the software section, it does have a number of other sub items, but apparently we can check out a few. There is the first one, which is set up Python app. And this is what you always use if you really want to create a Python web application on the server. So this is one of the tools that we are going to be using. And in terms of this, for cases whereby, for example, you're working with maybe Python Plus or Django, you always have to create a Python web application and according to the version that supports your project files. So we are going to see how to do this. And on the other hand, you can always check out features for the PHP and etc. So for now, this is what I wanted to take you through. So for now, those are some of the common features, and maybe in addition to this, we also always have one of the commonest features as well, and I mean the tool, and this is the one for the email or the emails. Now regarding the emails, this comes in for cases whereby maybe you want to create, for example, business emails, and for you to be able to do that, you always access the email accounts, and most of the emails would be created based on a particular domain. So right now the default one is this for the account that is there. So for you to create one, you always click here and create an email based on a domain that you want. So it could be the primary domain or the subdomain. So most of these emails, you will always have to configure them. That is if you do not have a Google Workspace account, meaning that by default, for example, if I went ahead and created a new email, like maybe goreti@this.com, and then I maybe went ahead and generated a password and then clicked on create, the email address would be created. But one thing you have to know is that, for example, if I went ahead and copied and pasted and tried to, for example, log in into any Google product. For example, if I try to log into any of the Google products like Google Chrome, and if I paste this email address and click on next, you realize that Google does not find this account. This is because the email accounts that we do create via the cPanel are not always going to be automatically configured for you to access them using the Google product. So if you really wanted to have this in that you can use the email for Gmail, you always have the ability of configuring them manually, though that is not a topic for today. But if you really wanted to automate that flow, you can always work with the Google Workspace. So you can always get a Google Workspace account to ensure that all emails that you create via the cPanel do have the ability of accessing Google products, and most especially, for example, Gmail. So you can do more research on that. Then, in addition to the tools, there are also cases whereby we do work with the cron jobs for scheduling, and also you also have the ability of changing the passwords and pretty much. Then for those that always work with content management systems like WordPress, you can check this out. But for now, that is all I have regarding the insights, and I hope this was very, very insightful. Thanks for watching, and see you again in the next session.